А у нас going live опять.
All right. Let's see if we're live in just a second. Yep, and we're live. I just got the message. Excellent.
Yeah, we are live.
All right. So welcome to another INTEA breakfast, another Friday, another breakfast. If you want to interact with us, leave a comment in the chat window. If you're watching this as a recording, don't worry. We'll react to all comments as well. Let us know if you want to suggest a topic for the next time or how you felt about today's topic. Speaking of which, I have a little bit forgotten, frankly, why we chose this and what we wanted to talk about specifically. So why process management? Why would that be useful to our audience?
Yeah, let's see if it's useful to our audience. I hope so. The reason we chose this particular topic was that we really wanted to share some of our life hacks when it comes to e-learning project management, how we organize processes, what are the lessons we learned over the years. It kind of became such an inherent part of what we do that for some time we were talking more about, marketing and artificial intelligence, stuff like that. But now, and I think especially these days when, we are in a kind of a recession and we have to work better and smarter, we thought that talking about the internal processes and how we manage projects can be actually quite beneficial to our audience.
Yeah, I even remember what prompted it. So I think we mentioned the 4I principle to a customer, and
right.
She looked at us and like, the what principle? And then we realized that a lot of things that we use internally and kind of don't think about them anymore can be useful and not that much known to people managing learning projects inside their own organization. So yeah, let's share a few trade secrets. And if you are a competitor, enjoy.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we begin, this is being broadcast through YouTube. You can also find on the same channel dozens of other videos from previous breakfasts, ranging on topics from technology to management and from future forecasts, which I think was our last breakfast, to life hacks that you can use for marketing and engagement and learning adoption and so on. Tons of stuff. Do subscribe. Don't forget that. All right. So I would say that the first and foremost, like the main lesson that we've learned in 15 years basically is that happy experts make happy projects, make happy us in the end. So subject matter experts are this kind of part of the learning project that it starts with, right? It's one of the first things that we go to them and say, okay, we understand that the management wants a course on this and that, right? So we want to educate future pharmaceutical reps on dangers of sharing personal data and so on and so on. Now, who knows about that? Who do we talk to? That's kind of day one. And then it also ends with them, right? They have to say that, yes, this is what we want to publish. I want to put my signature under it. Sometimes it's like literally, sometimes people do have like personal, almost criminal responsibility for the learning that is put out. And therefore we need to keep them happy. And happy is a fun word. So we need to keep them useful to us, we need to keep them effective, and they need to cooperate, right? Because if at any point in time they stop cooperating, they start saying, no, I don't like this, I don't like that, I want to redo this, this whole approach that you've chosen doesn't work, like they will impede the project big time. So there are like three probably basic things regarding like what you need to know when working with SMEs that are not obvious, right? Of course, like some things are obvious. You need to know who you work with and so on. But people talk about briefing subject matter experts. And I think that we've moved over the years from briefing them onto onboarding.
Absolutely.
And the difference is that onboarding is a two-way street, and in briefing, it's like one way. We come to them, we tell them what we need, what they have to do, which is already great. In many cases, you will come to them and will not tell
what is it exactly.
What is it exactly? It's like, I just need this, give me this, and then I'll go build something. Now, you give them the whole picture, but also you try to engage and involve them, try to sell them this idea of why we need this course, why it's important. We've had this case with military branch of one of the Baltic countries, which came to us and said, well, there are a number of experts who are rather old, and they have a lot of knowledge which they kind of hold within themselves in some sort of notes which they have on paper and so on, and we need to put this into electronic form to essentially digitize them for posterity. And I said, yeah, definitely. We started talking about that, and they said, at one point I said, yeah, so when they retire, they will still be able to check back on this, how it's adoption and so on will involve them. And they said, no, they're old. They're old. They will not be able to check anything, 5 years from now. That's what we are afraid of. This is the risk. This is why we came to you. We need to record those people now.
Yeah.
So experts do matter, but anyhow, so with onboarding, it's important to sell them the idea, like why they need, because in that case, I remember that there was a lot of like they felt that what they own, the knowledge that they own is their own. Sorry for phrasing it so clumsily, but they didn't want to share, right? They felt that they will become obsolete if they share. That was the whole point of the project. True.
But it's a psychological matter.
Yes, but their management did not think about like onboarding them and explaining like what's the benefit of this and so on. Sometimes you can say, hey, yeah, we know that you're super unique and useful, and your knowledge will never be the same when put into electronic form. But instead of traveling everywhere, why don't you just travel to the places you want? And why don't you talk about the stories that you can share instead of like giving the same 5 boring slides? We'll put them online, something like that. You can sell people. So yes, number one is onboard them. Like do sell the idea, make them want this course, explain why it's good for them, right? Not just for you or for the company or for the learners. God forbid who thinks about learners at all. And then another part, expectations, right? So make sure that they know what's required in terms of time. We've had experts who said, no, I don't have time for this. And we're like, no, it's just 2 hours. And you're like, imagine like 2 hours every day, that's not possible. And we're like, no, that's 2 hours and we're gone from your life for a month. And they're like, really? So, and they became friendly immediately, right?
Yeah, because they take for kind of, you take and us, we take for granted, and we have taken for granted the actual process, the actual involvement. So for some experts, their expectations might be that now we are doing this project, so it will be a full-time job for months or weeks or something. Other experts have an expectation, here's my PowerPoint, come to me when you have the course and I will tell you, yes or no, true or false.
Why is bad?
Yeah, so you have to kind of see those expectations, you have to dig those up, and briefing, I think also one thing, briefing is like kind of one-time event. With onboarding, it means that you explain the process once, twice, third time, fourth, but they will only be onboarded actually fully when they do their first project.
Yeah.
And you have just be prepared for it. And
it's a learning process for them.
It's a learning process for them, yeah.
So expectations, clear deadlines, and really, it's funny, but expectations are often it's easier. Like you explained that it's easier and faster than they thought, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Now, another super important point is when you have multiple subject matter experts, right? They will have a difference in opinion at some point about something, and the question is, who will be left holding the bag?
Yeah.
So if expert A comes to you and says that I think this information should be definitely in the course, and expert B comes and says that this information should definitely be in the course, and you understand that that is too much for the course, and what do? Are you the bad guy who will explain to both of them, ruining the relationship with both of them, that their part is not needed? Or what's even worse, your part is not needed, but will take that guy's part.
Yeah.
And one of them will be angry. So what happens then, right? You need to establish this from the very beginning. Understand who will be the final decision maker. Maybe it's their management, maybe it's the learning department, maybe it's the outside contractor. Maybe everyone agrees that what INTEA does is how it should be, right? We worked with them before, that's it. Otherwise, when you come to this, it will be already too late to decide who's in charge of the content, of the expert part, right? Not of the project, not of the costs, not of the timing, but really of what goes in and out and in what form and so on. Those minor differences can come down to phrasing of one single phrase, right? So guy A written this, guy B suggested that it needs to be changed. You changed it based on that. Guy A says, why did you change my phrase? I polished it for so long.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. So that should be as important as having the single point of contact for project management, right? So you don't have 15 phone numbers at INTEA where you call different people trying to find out what's going on to your project. You always have one person.
Yeah, and from the project management perspective, you have to plan for those alignment meetings or alignment times.
Yes.
If it is a project where many different people are involved, there needs to be alignment. Don't become that person kind of trying to negotiate peace in between five parties. Bring them together, facilitate it, but it's their job, it's their kind of mandate to align themselves.
So in brief, the worst thing to be is the person who gets angry emails from 5 different people and replies to them one by one, trying to negotiate kind of between them, but not letting them talk. It's better to let them talk, but it's even better if at the very beginning you agree on who has the final say in things.
Yeah.
That's the decision-making procedure, right? We need to understand who has the final say. That's it. So happy SMEs, happy project. So keep that in mind to onboard them and understand how the communication is done and how the decision making is done. Now, another thing that we've learned, all of those things we've learned the hard way, of course, is that the process, the production process of a course is a train. And what we know about trains, it moves from point A to B and never kind of, it does not have a reverse gear, right?
Yeah.
So it starts, if we quickly look at the process, how we build an e-learning project, we start with a brief, right? We get everyone on the same page, literally. We understand what the project is about and so on and so on. Then we create the outline of the content, we understand what's in, what it look like and so on. Then we start writing that content. Then we turn that content into a storyboard, which is essentially this bird's eye view of everything, what everything will roughly look and design and so on. Then there's the delivery, which involves, it hides underneath both the visual design and media production and programming and so on, testing. So there's a first delivery. Everyone, of course, is good to take a look at that, suggestions, comments. Then, based on those comments, we finally deliver it. And unless there are some bugs that need to be squashed, it's accepted. There is a procedure for reviewing and accepting this final product.
However, this has been.
I was talking through this, and I was like, this never happens.
No, it does. No, nowadays it tends to happen more or less like that. But in the past, of course, we had 2 problems, and this is where the metaphor of a train came about. I think it was me and my colleague Dinah some 7-8 years ago. We understood that we are moving back and forth in this process because certain things don't go as planned. So we decided that we will promote this idea of a moving train with our customers, saying that, okay, we have this time plan, we have this budget, we have point A, point B, the train is moving, the train can stop.
Yeah.
If needed, we have an emergency stop, we are spending more time at certain station, and only then we are moving ahead, but we are not going back. Going back is a double price kind of ticket. Yeah, return tickets are very, very costly, not only for us, but also for the customer. So that was one idea with why it's a train. The other thing about the train is that those people who will be making any kind of decisions in the end have to get on the train in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
that's
so
very,
it's a
very
train
good point.
with passengers. So if somebody steps on board somewhere in between, everybody has to be very, very skeptical of what these people suggest, how they are involved, and so on. For example, at some point in this journey, we would come to a station called Branding, which was not on our itinerary, but we have an emergency stop there. These guys step into the train, and we have to go backwards somewhere to the brief, basically, station, where they say that actually this is how it has to be done. So in a way, train is both a process, but also a stakeholder management kind of a procedure.
I like that it has those two meanings. Yeah, because I was kind of more thinking about the first one.
Yeah.
Like in even simpler terms, once you, for example, agree on a script and everyone underwrites the script and says that yes, this is what is going to be in the course, you start, creating slides out of it, or making videos out of that, or recording sound and so on. You cannot just at one point say, okay, well, we need to make changes to the script. We'll go back and rewrite this this chapter and so on. You should have thought about this when you were agreeing to the script. Same thing with deliver. Like it's delivered, you're playing. There's a little bit of comments, and then suddenly someone says, like with branding, that we need, like, we cannot use all these colors that you've used. We only have like 2 corporate colors. They're both terrible, but you need to stick to them. And we need to go back to the design and redesign and everything, and then reassemble and then redeliver and so on. No, it doesn't happen. It happens at the very beginning, when we show you the designs and so on, when we
and if some stakeholder has to step in at a certain station, then we know that, we prepare for that, and it's that station, not 3 stations later or 5 stations before, because this is disruptive.
It's the worst thing, when we will show it to the board when it's ready. Yeah,
it means that the whole train will move backwards at some point.
No, it's okay, as long as you say yes, you will show to the board will look at that and will not be able to change anything. Are we clear on that?
Or we plan some more stops ahead, because with some of our clients who have certain processes and decision making, we just say, okay, there is the final delivery to learning and development. And then there is again comments from the board. Next station is those changes, and those changes are unforeseeable. So this is a separate budget, separate time plan. So we cannot do that on a hard deadline. However.
So it's very natural for people. This kind of leads us into our next story. So it's very natural for people to not be able to imagine the whole e-learning course from just looking at the script, right? So they read through a document which doesn't even have pictures in it, and it says that there is a quiz or an exercise or something, like it says Likert scale or a slider, or some interaction is described. It can be a script for a movie about some sort of work interaction and
imagine reading script for Kill Bill.
Yeah, and trying to imagine that
you would imagine anything but what came out in the end. That's natural.
So people will have comments, and of course, it's great if you can just say, don't have comments, right? So you agree on something that you don't really realize what it's going to look like and whether you will like that, but you have to agree that. Same thing with delivery, right? It delivered, and then people realize, so that's what it looks like, that's what it's supposed to look like. Now I start thinking, and so on. And by that time, you've already spent a lot of effort on this. And unless you want to do this multiple times and really spend a lot of effort on this, the faster way is to use a prototype. And prototypes, on one hand, they're kind of self-explanatory, right? If you're going to build a course which consists of 10 chapters, build one chapter, show everyone. If you want to make a course which includes 1 hour of acted out interactions between, let's say, a police officer and on a traffic stop and so on, before going and filming that, with full gear and full crew, take your phone, go to a meeting room and try to play it out, see if it works. If you think that this will be an interactive movie where you have to click and choose and stop and point out while a bank manager is talking to a suspicious customer, go play it out with your friend. It's super fun. Do it in a meeting room with an iPhone, then cut it, put it crudely into some sort of a tool, click through that. You'll understand some things, like you'll say, oh, I totally see that we need 3 cameras, right? It's better to understand that while you only have one iPhone than when you've gathered the whole crew and you only have 1 camera or 2 cameras instead of 3 cameras, or something else. Or you will understand, no, that idea that we will act it out doesn't work. Or that idea that we plan to film the whole hour within 1 day, no, see, we've spent, with a minimal setup, we've spent 2 hours filming 1 minute. So we need to plan for more time. So prototypes help you like that, and they also help you communicate that. It's easier to come to one of the stakeholders and say, okay, well, I've built 1 chapter. The images are, I've stolen them from the internet. We'll have proper ones. There is no music or sound because we did not add this, but generally you can click through, let me kind of help you and explain that. Ideally it comes somewhere in that part after the script and storyboard, because script is more or less driven by the learning goal and by the materials that you have, by the actual subject matter, and by the expert that brings that matter to you. But before you go into production, the whole delivery, somewhere in there, do a prototype. You'll have to build that chapter anyhow. But before you build 10, bring 1, show it to everyone. It will be easier to communicate.
Additional thought here is that at first, like Sergey said, and very often, of course, we take first chapter for first module, something like that, as a prototype. But more often now, we are prototyping the most risky, the most difficult part of the course. So basically, if we know that in the end there will be some kind of a gamified quizzing with some very difficult kind of with variables, and stuff, and calculating points and assigning badges, something like that, whatever, we would be prototyping that, or videos, as you said. So anything that is kind of innovative, something that you haven't tried before, it's your go-to prototyping. Another point here is you also kind of deciding where the prototyping happens, again, very differently. As Sergey said, the standard approach is that it happens somewhere around scripting in parallel just after that. But sometimes we might start prototyping as the first step in certain projects. So it depends on what's there.
So one approach is to prototype kind of the most risky, difficult part, something that you haven't done before, both for your own sake to see that it works, and also for the sake of communicating to the client or to the management, to any stakeholders, that this is what it's going to feel like, right? They might say, no, this is like we played this a little bit, we thought that would be a great idea, but it's obviously too confusing. Thank God we only spent a day on building the prototype instead of 2 weeks on building the whole thing. Let's just scratch that. So the early you go is better, and doing the risky part makes sense. But at the same time, we often use something old as a prototype. We take a course that we've already built and we bring it to you and say, okay, this is a course on workplace safety, right? It has it has characters, it has a little bit of story, there's a little bit of interaction in there, there's a quiz check, and this is how we've done it. Now we'll do a course on anti-money laundering, but it will be built like that. So imagine that this guy, instead of a problem with whatever his work safety is, that nobody's wearing hard hats, and he's a manager responsible for that. Now nobody's checking the client's documents properly, and he's a manager responsible for that. So it will be similar, right? So you bring the old course, you might like even change some text if that's quick and so on, and then you show it to people and say, yeah, I can now imagine that. Because if you just bring them the outline or the script, they look at the document looks boring. In most cases, they will not even try to imagine it, or even if they try, they might not have the experience, right? Especially with subject matter experts. They not
don't build e-learnings every day.
Yes, exactly. So a prototype will help them kind of wrap the whole head around and make it smoother. So you can say that prototype can be a part of that onboarding that we started with. One of the last things we wanted to mention is this approach that we've stolen from Greta Thunberg. Reuse, reduce, recycle, right? What makes your life hard is when every project is new and risky, has a new mechanic, it has a new visual style, it has a new instructional approach, it has new people on board building this as part of your team because you've never worked with animators before, or as experts because you've never worked with psychologists or lawyers before, and so on. The more you do the same thing, the more you can take from the previous course and then bring it to the next one, the easier your life gets. Ideally, you should be like that, professional touring band, which can be underslept, overdrunk, and go on stage and perform because they've been performing that Wind of Change song for 40 years
40 years now.
Something like that. So yeah, reduce and recycle, and if we break it down, there are a few things. So first of all, make sure that every course is not like a unique unicorn that is a work of art, right? You're in a factory, right? You create products. The products have types. So there are courses. What we do, and we've talked about this in one of the previous breakfasts. We have courses that pass information.
Yeah, knowledge courses, skill courses, and then mindset, behavior, attitudes, kind of.
So you understand that this is a knowledge course, right? We do not aim to change people's lives with this course. They just have to know certain things, and we need to know that they know. So there's a template for this. This is the type of course. We will never use this or that approach in that course. And there is a skills course. It has a certain instructional approach, and there's a little bit of story, there's a little bit of practice, there's a little bit of selling the idea to people, there's a little bit of explaining how it's going to be applied now that they finished it in real life, and so on, too. Like all the best instructional things that we've known, all the best technical things that okay, this is the thing for the skills. And then there's a mindset, which more often of an artsy thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that there are type of course, we never use the wrong type for a wrong course, and it's easy to just take the even old course from a shelf and rebuild it, or but the problem with taking old course, rebuilding this into a new course, is that with time you will accumulate certain problems, right?
Yeah.
It's like, imagine a piece of plasticine, right, where you mold it into with your child into a little mushroom or something. Yeah. And then
it's a hedgehog.
It's a hedgehog, and then it's a little piggy, and then it's something else. The problem, it will become muddy and terrible and will not work in the end. Or if you rebuild the same Lego set, you will lose pieces of it, and it will not work properly this time, and so on and so on. So instead of reusing the same course, if you feel that there is a future for like a lot of use for this, then create a blank template, right? Make sure that it's perfect, it works perfectly, and that no specific life hack or something that you moved around because the text was a little bit too long now stays in every new page in the new course. And then in that course, you'll move something else around, and it will end up accumulating all those things. So nothing aligns, nothing works, everything jumps where it doesn't, and so on. Doesn't have to. So create a blank template and use it every time for a new course. So you do not build course
Like
D from C, C from B, B from A, you know, and there's a whole heritage with mutations in that line, bloodline of courses. But no, there's always the primal blank template that you use to build course A, and then you use that same template to build course B, and A and B are not kind of related directly.
They're siblings.
Yes, yes, siblings, right.
Yeah,
so
but then you go to
genetics of courses.
Yeah.
We need to make it.
Yeah, and then you can of course go back and after every project use that blank template and just improve it based on your experience. So go back like in loops there.
Let's say you found as you were building a project, you've also built a new type of slide that you really like. It's only used in this course, but let's just move it back into the template, make sure it fits. Now we have this cool, awesome slide that we don't have to rebuild every time, and it's also easier because, you know, if half a year later you remember that, hey, remember that cool slide where we had this sliding thing and then that was the other sliding thing, we want to use this here, what course was that? And you're like, I don't remember, it was something on finance something. And you spent 2 days digging through this, and the person who you worked on it with is already gone. And so now if that was, once you've built it, removed and put into the template, and you always know where the template is, life becomes way easier.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's about slide types. And again, try and optimize the slide types in the sense that, let's say you have a multiple choice. So one question and then single choice, multiple answers. And then you have one question and then multiple choice, multiple answers, right? Where you can put the check marks instead of radio buttons. And then you have a course where you can put check marks, but only limited number of them. So you have to, like, out of many answers, you can only select 2.
Yeah.
And then you have radio buttons, but when you select the radio button, you also have to type why you selected it. And, you know, every time you build this, you feel that it's very exciting, it's very cool, the learners will love this, it's a novelty and so on, but in the end you will end up with a million of different questions. But the instructional, the aim of the question is very simple. It kicks the learner out of the flow of clicking pages and requires them to kind of think a little bit about what they've read. And typically, you know, we have a whole breakfast on writing good questions, but technically, you know, the zoo of different slide types grows naturally, and you want to control that. And ideally, you know, the script that you write, at the point when you write the script, you should know the slide type that you will use. So you will not write 2 long sentences or 2 short sentences that look bad. You will not write something that there is no, like you come up with a new quiz type, you know, where you have to drag something, like you don't have that slide type. You know, ideally the production person, in our case, comes back to you and says, I don't have that. Like, I can't do that. But can't you build it from scratch? You're Lyosha, you are a genius. We know you can do everything. Lyosha is our chief technical officer at INTEA.
But the question he will ask, are we going to use it once?
Yes.
I mean, am I going to spend 3 days for something that will never be reused?
And who's going to pay for that, right? So it turns into a discussion at least, right? So if you want to aim for the optimal process for the quick turnaround, you have to know your slide types. You need to write into them, basically. And in some cases, in some tools, you can literally write script in the tool, so it turns into the slide, so there is no discrepancy between these two. And if you find that, you have to battle that. Right, okay, finally, the final lesson that we've learned in these years, and the final life hack that we want to share is also the final step for any project. It's the quality assurance. It's making sure that whatever we've built actually works. It corresponds to what we agreed in the very beginning. And there are a couple of things that we've learned. Well, we started by mentioning the 4 eyes principle. It's also known in programming, for example, it's known as the maker checker. The idea is very simple. To check something that is good, you need 2 people. One is the one who made it, and the other one is who didn't make it. who sees it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because the person who's made it, he becomes oblivious, blind to things that are there, and sometimes you cannot see a typo. Like, I'm sure everyone who has done a PowerPoint presentation,
You always have a typo.
you always
somewhere.
have a typo, not somewhere, on a front page, basically, right? So, or in the heading, or in the last
surname.
slide, in your own surname, in the last slide, like thank you, something like that, because you were typing fast and you just don't see it because you've worked with it for so long, and you need another pair of eyes, fresh eyes, right? But you still need the maker as part of the process, right? They will be able to help and so on. Otherwise, sometimes the other person will sort of struggle. So, and the most effective trick is that if you're doing something, if I'm doing something and Raivis is doing something, we can just swap, right?
Yeah,
right? Like in school, easy. Right? So we do a cross check, and that's easy. So 4 eyes principle, just two people checking two courses, but you need to swap. That swapping is the important part. You never check your own work, you check somebody else's work. That's the point. Another one is quality assurance template. Quality assurance is not just a fun, frivolous process where you send the end results to everyone and say, what do you think?
Yeah.
And then over the course of God knows how many days, because you did not specify the deadline for the comments, you keep receiving some ideas and suggestions and comments.
You are going to receive written ideas, screenshots, videos, outbursts on the phone.
A voice message.
A voice message, God forbid, yes. So it has to be structured.
Yes.
Especially on the client side, I would say, in a way that if you are internally quality assurance, you will probably self-organize.
Yeah.
We will self-organize. But when you send it to somebody who is kind of a client or an SME or a random employee who has to check it before we launch it, then they need to have guidance and the template, as you're saying.
Yeah,
how
the
to
template,
do that.
The template is fairly simple. So it's a list, it's a spreadsheet with all the pages, all the names of the pages, so you know what's what. And you might have a number of columns. Contact us if you want to see our template. We'll
alternatively, what we use actually is the PowerPoint presentation.
That's my next one. So yeah. I'll explain about spreadsheets and then I'll tell about the better way.
Why it's bad?
So no, the spreadsheets are okay, especially if you work with the same team internally, because it's very organized, right? So you have columns for what you expected, what you got instead, how it should be. And then some stages, like is it urgent or not urgent? Do we need to fix it or not? And who is going to be responsible for that? Because some things, it can be a typo, or the algorithm of a quiz doesn't work. That's one thing. Or another thing is that there is a wrong image inserted, right? Yeah. Or something like that, or a page missing. So everyone can write their comment in the right place, and if you have multiple people, you can leave space for them so they can add lines to that. And in the end, it's very easy to see. It's very easy to go through that line by line and just check them off as you fix them, or come back to the client and say, hey, in line 15, you're talking about slide 15, and you're talking about this phrasing, but remember, there is this email that we received and we agreed on this. Yes, okay, so dismissed, and so on. And then it also is served for kind of a quality, for kind of provided feedback. It's like, hey, it was a terrible project. For 15 slides we had 45 lines, right? Or it was a great project. For 50 slides we only had 2 lines, and we both dismissed them because we agreed that it's not a problem. Yeah. So you can look at that later, even a year later, and say, okay, that was a terrible project or a good project. The quality was good or bad, and for whatever reason you need to know that. Right, but another way that we found kind of sits better with SMEs especially, and people who are not very technical and not very thorough, is that we give them a PowerPoint where they just take screenshots of a problem that they found, they put the screenshot in, and they write what the problem is and what they want from that problem. And they also color code their comments. So when you open that PowerPoint, you can actually see, okay, there are all those slides with screenshots, and they're like number of red stickers and the number of blue stickers and the number of purple stickers, because red is everything that's broken and purple is everything where translation is wrong, and blue is everything where you want to update the imagery, and so on and so on. So as you open it, you see, okay, no reds, so the technical team does not need to be involved, but tons of blue stuff. Blue stuff means problem with translations. So okay, it goes to the person who was working with translations, and it's primarily up to them. So you can already book the time for that and so on. And for people, it's just easy. You teach them how to take screenshots and copy and paste them into PowerPoint. That's it.
Yeah, because with all these spreadsheets, and there are also different kind of reviewing tools, they're all nice and good, so long as it's not a collaborative work where somebody has to make decisions.
Yeah.
Because we've found that PowerPoints are good because you can accumulate, our clients can accumulate comments in one PowerPoint, then somebody screens through, aligns them, and we get a final version, and it's visual both for the customer and for us, and communication is transparent, because sometimes the client makes 50 comments, out of which 45 are just ideas for improvement, not the problems, but they feel like, it's a bad quality course, it's not visualized. And here we can see, look, you can see that also all kind of nice to have suggestions are 90% of the comments. So it's a good course. It's just, the input is different.
Well, I can go on a very long rant trying to explain why the quality assurance tools, which are getting built into Storyline has its own dedicated assurance tool. There is a quality assurance tool for video that we use internally, but every time when you try to onboard a customer into one of those things, it doesn't work, because the customer only knows PowerPoint, or the expert only knows PowerPoint, and that's all they know, that's all they want to know. Those tools, the problem with them is that if they're really, really simple, they're not useful for us.
They're not detailed enough.
But if they're complex, then you can't onboard the expert, right? So they end up being used internally, where we can dedicate time and effort into using them, but just use PowerPoint, it's easier. And final note on the quality assurance is that it always helps if at every point in the process, remember that, do they have that process, right? If at every point you can quality assure not just the work that you've just done, right? So you've created the designs, and now you look at them and they are all correct. But you also, while you do that, you can take a look at the script, and if you see there's a problem with the script, you can actually tell the script writers at that point, not later, right? Or if in the final delivery you see a problem with the design, but your job is there just to check that it works, then it's very beneficial if you take a little step back and come to them and say, hey, it's actually I think there's a problem. And sometimes even with translations, right? We've done translations where we can see that in the script, on the slide in Swedish, it says the following 4 points are crucial to success of whatever. And there are 3 points. My Swedish is not great, but I can tell that. So I my job is just to make sure that the translation is there and that it all fits and so on. But I can actually go back to the scripters and say, didn't we mean 3 points? And they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. At this point, not when it comes to the final client, and they say
no, of course. And this is why at INTEA, the further you get, we're kind of talking about 4I principles, a minimum program. But what usually happens with our team, that script is being reviewed by somebody who is an ID specialist who can do that professionally, quality assure that. When the design is made, there is another designer checking the design and also an ID person, because sometimes by doing design, you might make it pedagogically terrible. And then when it's final deliver, then it's everybody. So of course, this is kind of a maximum program we utilize for big complex projects. When it's smaller, it needs to be smaller, but you have to plan for it. When you start the project, you know the project plan, but you also have to know who is going to quality assure at which point.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's not kind of okay. When we make it, we see how we're going to check it, who's going to check it. It will not work.
If everyone at INTEA is happy and motivated and so on, but it's not always the case with people that you work with, and sometimes the person who wrote the script will say, why would I watch like the whole thing now again? I don't care, I have other things to do. So you have to plan for that as well. You have to explain to them in the very beginning that you write the script, and then we'll see you like 2 weeks later when you go through the course. Or you write the script, you say that this is what you expect to see there, and you don't check it. Like you rely on us that it goes there. And stuff like that needs to be communicated well. Anyhow, so I hope that was useful, and it helps you manage your e-learning projects better in-house. Maybe you've learned something useful. Let us know in the comments if you want us to talk about another aspect of our sort of internal kitchen at INTEA. Let us know. It's always interesting to put this into this external perspective for you. And join us in a
couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks, yes, probably from now. And also, quick advert, there is an INTEA Academy happening in Latvian language led by Ravis on Wednesdays. So find the first issue of that on this channel. Let us know if you want to be part of that as well. This is where we talk about kind of more basic and down-to-earth topics related to people, like more relevant to people who are just starting a learning journey, as opposed to the bigger breakfast. And it's also a little bit more structured. And here on Fridays, we're just having fun.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Have a great day.